Good Sunday night. I am Thabo Mdluli, and thank you for joining us tonight here on In Focus on Newzroom Afrika, Channel 405. The controversy regarding a multi-billion rand electricity supply tender in the city of Tshwane is threatening the coalition partnership. Some are calling for Tshwane Mayor Randall Williams axing the ANC in the metro. He's threatening a motion of no confidence against him. For more on this, we are joined by the parties involved. We'll be joined shortly by Gauteng's leader for ActionSA, that is Bongani Baloyi. But right now we have with us the ANC's chairperson in Tshwane, Matjila, IFP Tshwane Convener, Ziyanda, Zwane, and the Democratic Alliance Cilliers Brink. Good evening to you all, and thank you very much for your time and for joining us tonight here on In Focus. Cilliers, let me begin with you. Is this how coalition governments work as far as this particular situation that is playing out?
Thabo, if I can just correct one thing in your introduction. You mentioned that there was a 26 billion rand supply of electricity tender. Now, according to the explanation that the mayor has put on record and repeated over and over again, there was in fact no tender that was proposed at Tuesday's council meeting. Tenders usually don't come to council meetings. What was on the table before councillors was a proposal to take on public participation a particular investment that a consortium of private companies had pitched to the city.
Yes.
And what they wanted to do, and what the city wanted to solicit public comment on, was a proposal to lease mothballed power stations, no longer in use by the municipality, to this consortium. And to be clear, before any electricity could be procured, or even before any lease agreement could be signed with such a consortium, there were various steps that had to be followed.
Yes.
And the proposal before the council did not preempt the outcome of such a process.
Yes.
It just wanted to take the first step.
We are going to go through Practice Note 11 processes that you've undergone. The Practice Note processes will be cleared. But I wanted to start here, Cilliers. Is this how multi-party coalitions work? Is this the workings of a multi-party coalition?
This should certainly not be the way that coalitions function. What we had was all parties except for ActionSA agreeing that this item should proceed to the council. It followed a caucus of the coalition. And then what ActionSA did was, in the most opportunistic and chaotic way, accusing the mayor of corruption, not just opposing an item on the council agenda, but accusing the mayor of corruption without a shred of evidence, and then repeating that claim. And that is certainly not the behavior of any party who is committed to the effective functioning and the future of a coalition. But nonetheless, we try and learn from these things, and we will certainly use coalition mechanisms to hold ActionSA to account for what they did and the way that they handled this particular item.
In a 90-minute voice note or recording that has gone viral, Cilliers, one of the quotes that gets picked up over and over again is the mayor saying it is the role of the executive authority to take strategic decision and the role of the administration to implement those decisions, whether they agree or disagree with that decision. That's not their call. I mean, as the Democratic Alliance, do you agree with that position?
So if you listen to the whole 90-minute recording, which the context is apparently the meeting happened a year ago at a very early stage after the city received this investment proposal, and there was a robust exchange of views between the mayor and the officials in the city, you can hear the mayor repeatedly referring to the provisions of law. So whatever views were expressed there, he repeatedly invoked the provisions of law, saying that the matter must be dealt with in terms of the MFMA and the provisions of law. The recording by itself, again, if you listen to the whole 90 minutes and not the 5-minute splice that ActionSA and other parties are distributing on social media, gives a proper context. And indeed, it is the role of the mayor to give policy and strategy direction. And then it is for the officialdom to advise the political leadership of how objectives can be reached. it isn't simply a matter of the mayor saying this will be done and over and out. There is an exchange of views, and what has transpired between that recording and what eventually landed at council is an entire process where Note 11 that you mentioned was discovered and advised to the mayor, where this proposal passed through the mayoral committee, where the city manager also has sitting, and then lastly the coalition caucus, where the mayor also explained in quite some detail what the substance of this proposal is, and the fact that no outcome is preempted by the proposal itself.
Right. Let's bring in some of the other, of course, panel guests. Ziyanda, let me talk to you on this issue, because what the mayor is saying is that we'll go through the processes of Practice Note 11 on how an unsolicited investment proposal should be followed. I mean, there's been a workshop, apparently. There's been a notification of National Treasury. There's been some kind of public participation that has gone through in this process. Then it went to the provincial government, where province said, please go ahead and proceed. And then it was transferred to the municipal transfer office process. And it was tabled before joint caucus, where 5 of the 6 coalition parties agreed that this must now be taken to council. Are you familiar with those details, Ziyanda? And is that how things worked? Okay, we've lost Ziyanda there. He seems to have gone out of line. We'll try and get him back into the conversation. But Dada Matjila, let me bring you in here. You are calling for a motion of no confidence. The DA in particular saying this bid is not a bid. It's not a tender, but it's an unsolicited investment proposal that could certainly benefit the city in terms of, for example, 3 things that this bid is unique about that it brings. They are not going to be opening those power stations, rather. They're old. I think they're 70 years old is what the mayor says. So he took a strategic decision in line with the city's climate change policy to say those power stations will not be reopened, but here's a company that seeks to bring investment to build modular biogas turbines, to build a biodigester, one of the biggest we've ever seen, quite unique, and also a smelter that is going to produce iron. All this looking good in terms of bringing investment into the city. Why is the ANC opposed to that?
Thanks very much, Tate Mdluli, for affording us an opportunity and a platform to highlight the corruption that the DA might want to infuse into the city. First of all, let's look at the amount of money budgeted for the 2 stations. Very exorbitant. Secondly, the mere fact that there's one company with no competition, and I mean there's nothing unique and innovative about the company that is preferred. Our main bone of contention is, why are we not creating a fair and competitive atmosphere? Because all of us, we agree that there's a need to refurbish so that we are able to have extra power or energy to deal with the crises that are there. But the manner in which this matter is being pushed, it's very questionable. Yeah. I mean, we are expecting a mayor to be a person who's very reasonable and lawful, but the manner in which he's pushing this thing really, it's uncalled for. But
Matjila is saying there's no contract to refurbish. There's really no contract to refurbish. They are not refurbishing those power stations. What they are doing is an unsolicited investment proposal, literally to lease the land. Those people are going to lease the land and pay the city rent, and they're going to build those 3 things. which I have mentioned for you, which they're going to then plug in and supply electricity. So there is no refurbishing whatsoever as far as they are concerned.
No, that's not true. Remember, the DA is trying to defend itself. I mean, this would be the fourth mayor involved in somehow corruption. So it's obviously that they would want to defend themselves. They would have gone to National Treasury seeking permission to proceed with what we term a fraudulent process. And the National Treasury would have advised them that they need to ensure that the process is fair and competitive, and there's innovation and uniqueness, and also to look at the question of the budgets and so forth, you know. So there are a number of things that they would have failed to meet. So obviously they are just trying to turn this thing around. It's not true. The fact of the matter is that after the mayor could not even find joy within his coalition partners, he tried to go outside to seek assistance so that this thing could be processed. For us, it's a javelin. The issue of land and so forth, it's very strategic in a way that once they have secured the land, they will be able to find ways of proceeding with this cartos fraud and so forth. So it's not true that there's no tender, there's nothing. Intention is to have this cartos receiving the 26 billion project and so forth. I think it's a retirement. It's a retirement scheme for the mayor, because we are told within no time he will be resigning and so forth.
But again, help me understand here, because this to me it seems is quite a bizarre thing, because the mayor says there will be no 26 billion that's coming from the city, so the city will not be spending money. It is money that's going to be coming in. So I want you to help me understand why you believe that there is a 26 billion that has been set aside for the mayor.
But do you honestly believe, Thabo, that a person can just come and put 26 billion without any returns? I mean, the people of the city are the ones who are going to pay this amount of money. It's ourselves. Because once the project is up and running, the investor will have to get the returns, and who's going to pay for it? It's ourselves. It's the people of this city over a period of 30 years. So it simply means even our kids will be paying that amount of money. So it can't be true that the city is not paying. Who's the city? Because we are the people of this city. The city does not belong to the DA. It belongs to the people of Tshwane. So the people of Tshwane will have to pay, and it's ourselves. Hence we are saying no to this fraudulent process. Yeah.
Cilliers, let's bring you in here. I mean, one of the issues that is being raised by the ANC, which also, if you look at Practice Note 11, does come up, that an unacceptable unsolicited proposal, the accounting officer or accounting authority must reject an unsolicited proposal if the proposal relates to known institutional requirements that can, within reasonable limits and practicably limits, be acquired by conventional competitive bidding methods. In other words, if it can be done by the normal processes, you don't have to go through this process. What is so unique about this that it couldn't follow the normal processes of procurement?
Well, again, this is not a procurement process. And let me emphasize that before the city concludes any lease agreement or even buys power from an alternative supply of electricity, and remember, this is what this whole thing is about. The idea is to diversify the supply of electricity available to the cities. And it's not only Tshwane that's looking at means of doing this. Every city has to do this because we can no longer afford the damage done by load shedding. But before any of that can happen, certain steps in a process need to be followed. Now, Thabo, if the council had voted in favor of this report on Tuesday, the string on which Mr. Matjila accuses the mayor of corruption over. If council had voted yes, if the majority of parties had been in favor at that point, then the public would have had the opportunity to comment. National Treasury would have had the opportunity to put their views on record. National Treasury's comments cannot be preempted by Mr. Matjila. He doesn't know what they are going to say. In fact, comments by the Provincial Treasury in the report were supportive of the very process which the city had embarked upon. But let me just also say something about these accusations of fraud and corruption, which are thrown about without a shred of evidence. Surely if you make a claim like that, you must come with more than just a half-baked idea of what could possibly be. And as you mentioned over and over again to Mr. Matjila, which he doesn't seem to understand or accept, the 26 billion would not have come from the coffers of the city. This was the price of the investment proposal. That was what private companies were willing to invest. And of course, they would eventually want to make a return. The return that is to be made is in a new deregulated energy market. But we can't preempt that process by saying that any contract would have been concluded with this particular consortium or that they would necessarily have been corrupt. If you make these allegations, you must come with more than just speculation and political opportunism.
Ziyanda, I hope you can hear me. If you can, please unmute your microphone so that we can get the view of the IFP on this. So my question to you was, this was brought before the joint caucus, and 5 out of the 6 coalition parties actually agreed to take this motion to cancel. What has changed?
Thank you very much, Thabo. As the IFP, we learned it very disturbing after the voice recording that circulated, where the mayor was instructing to say, even if they were advising him, the officials, to say, this cannot go as an unsolicited bid. So the idea is great. We are fully supporting the idea. But now, with this whole cloud of allegations and whatnot, allegations will remain allegations until such time where the improper investigation is conducted, and then the mayor's name is cleared in the whole idea.
Now, the mayor says there is no tender. There is no Australian company. This really is an investment proposal, unsolicited investment proposal. Does the IFP have any issues with that?
As I'm saying, Thabo, the idea is great. No one will stand in a way where the deal is coming to take away load shedding issues. But now the problem is that the manner at which these things are happening, all these voice recordings and Raymond Campbell in the scenario, now it raises eyebrows. As the IFP was saying, let the mayor's name be cleared in the whole scenario, so that we know that if we are supporting the deal, we are supporting the deal with no shady issues.
All right. Cilliers, want to address that? The authorized representative of Kratos Consortium, by reports that I think in the city press, but I think Michael Beaumont has tweeted them widely as well, is Raymond Campbell, who is the son of a DA councillor, Winston Campbell. Does it ring a bell to you? Is there conflict of interest there? Former DA councillor.
The name Winston Campbell definitely rings a bell, and I can tell you he was a DA councillor. Yeah. In 2014, he defected to the ANC in a very public way, and then he was appointed as an official inside the housing department under the previous ANC administration. Kgosientsho Ramakgopa was the mayor. When the DA came to power, there were disciplinary charges against Winston Campbell, and he was fired from his position. So I can tell you the only name I recognize there is Winston Campbell, and any association that name has with the DA is not a friendly one. So ActionSA would need to dig a little bit deeper to substantiate these allegations. Let me also just say something else. In February of this year, in the council meeting, ANC councillors accused ActionSA's Abel Tau of having improper business interests in water supply tankers of the city. They simply made this allegation without a shred of evidence. Now, if the DA were as opportunistic as ActionSA, we would have jumped on those allegations, and we would also have accused Abel Tau of water tanker corruption. But because there is no evidence of this allegation, we did not. And that is the conduct of a responsible coalition partner. We act on evidence. That having been said, Randall Williams did say that he is willing to submit to any investigation. He has got nothing to hide. He is willing to explain the context of any recording that was made, as well as the procedural steps that the mayoral committee took in bringing this particular proposal to council. And that should give assurance to the public that if there is possibly anything wrong here, at least the mayor is willing to submit himself to an investigation and not hiding from that fact, from that request.
So you've raised your own reservations, for example, around Abel Tau and what happened in February and so on and so forth, and they are raising issues around.
I gave an example.
As an example.
I gave an example of what you don't do.
Yes.
You don't jump on the bandwagon and opportunistically repeat something that an opponent of the coalition has said.
Absolutely.
If you're really committed to the coalition, you ask for evidence, which we're still waiting for in respect of Abel Tau and water tankers.
Yeah. So here's my question for you then. How can people have any faith in this coalition when coalition parties themselves are double-guessing each other, doubting each other?
Well, unfortunately, this type of thing does have the risk of losing public faith in coalitions. The only thing we can say is that at least after the past elections, we've got proper coalition agreements in place. Those coalition agreements are, of course, being tested. There are mechanisms to deal with improper conduct by coalition partners. And what the DA will be doing is to be using those mechanisms to call parties such as ActionSA to account for their behavior, but also to ensure that deadlock-breaking mechanisms function properly in future. This is a new thing for South Africa, but it is the model according to which Gauteng and perhaps even South Africa will be governed after 2024. And whatever differences we might have with ActionSA and the way that they have dealt with this issue, the damage that they've done, we are committed to repairing that breach and to moving forward and to putting on the table in DA governments and coalition governments proposals of how communities can diversify their electricity supply away from Eskom and escape load shedding.
Yeah. Rather unfortunate that we actually did reach out to Bongani Baloyi of ActionSA to have been a part of this conversation. Something must have happened in between that communication. He couldn't join us this evening. Hopefully we'll get him at another time for him to respond to some of those issues. Dada Matjila, let's talk about this issue that's coming up that apparently Winston Campbell was actually had defected to the ANC.
Well, that is beside the issue, Thabo. I think our focus here is the corrupt, unlawful and irregular manner in which Mayor Randall wanted to process this Cartos issue. I don't think it's important to speak about the Campbell. He's not part of these processes. I don't even know who Campbell is. I don't know where he is and so forth. So we should not divert from this important matter.
But you are linking the Kratos Consortium to the Democratic Alliance, or at least to the retirement fund of Mayor Randall Williams. How so? How are you connecting the two?
No. The manner in which this is pushed, unlawfully, irregular, wherein we have a number of companies, because the ANC would have done a desktop research in terms of whether do we have companies that can be able to offer the same type of work with the lesser amount of money. And the answer we are getting around is that there's plenty of companies that can do that, even internationally. As to why Randall arrived specifically to this one of Cartos, it's very suspicious. So that's where we are. As to who are people at the background and so forth, we don't have interest. I mean, Campbell would have originated from the DA. So for him to have decided to join other parties later on is neither here nor there. So the focus now is what Randall would have attempted to do, something that we have stopped as the ANC and other parties within council. And we appreciate what Action South Africa would have done, although they now want to play a blame game to say, no, Action South Africa should have. They did well because DA always claimed to be a party that is very clean, where they govern and so forth. This is the fourth mayor that we are speaking of, caught with his hands in the cookie jar. So they need to focus there. Speak to the mayor to quickly resign so that we are able to focus. I mean, if you come to the city of Tshwane, Tabu, now, the entire city is dirty. There are no services in the townships and so forth. So these are the things that we're supposed to be speaking about now, not the corruption that the mayor is trying to push, trying to use our own councillors who are very honest, because he would have tried to coerce our own councillors to push this thing with him, and they flatly refused. And they came to our office and reported to say, here is a guy trying to do his own things and trying to promise them sweetness and so forth. So I think this is what we need to focus on and leave the other things that are not related to this story. I think we need bring.
Let's take a break. When we come back,
we are going to remove this thing out of our eyes.
We'll come back and hear a little bit more from Cilliers Brink, what they're going to do with this particular, what they call unsolicited investment proposal. Yeah, shall I put it that way? That's what they are calling it, and it has nothing to do with a tender. What are your thoughts then? Did the mayor follow processes? Should the mayor go? Or you believe this is a benefit for the city? 072-110-5584. Otherwise, you can tweet us tonight at Newzroom 405. We continue in a moment. Well, welcome back live with us tonight. You're in Focus, Newzroom Afrika, channel 405. Thanks for staying on. The conversation continues. The Democratic Alliance Cilliers Brink. We also have ANC's Matjila as well as Ziyanda. He's with the Inkatha Freedom Party, I beg your pardon. Now, earlier on, my colleague Kathy Moshlahlan, in conversation with the mayor of the city of Tshwane, Randall Williams, he says there was never a tender of 26 billion rands as alleged by the ActionSA. He adds that the party has failed to produce evidence to support its claims. Watch.
And there's been a lot of misinformation out there. I can start out by saying it's been almost a week now since ActionSA has accused me of interfering with a tender, and there was a tender for 26 billion rands. Today, they have not shown us evidence of any tender. The tender does not exist. There never was a tender for 26 billion rands. And in fact, if you listen to stories that ActionSA is telling to the public now, they no longer refer to a tender of 26 billion rand or a contract. They only refer to me interfering in the administration.
Dr. George Matjila, from what I'm hearing there, it might seem that you yourself as the ANC are playing into the hands of ActionSA. You have no evidence yourself to support that there is a tender of any nature. I mean, you have not certainly presented that evidence to us today.
Tabo, we are very excited and comfortable as the ANC that there's no tender. At least we are happy because we stopped. That would have been a greater scandal. So if today the DA and Mayor Randall says there's no tender, we are happy because what it simply means is that in the coming 30 years, our people are not going to pay the cartos the javelin that Mayor Randall would have received upon his retirement. So we are excited, and we want this process to be taken to a fair and competitive environment. So if today he stands before all of us saying there's no tender, I mean, we're excited because we were very much worried about it. But they are attempting to do that thing.
They argue that it was going to go to a fair and a competitive process anyway, because the next phase would be a request for a lease, would go for public participation, but there will be a bid adjudication committee, and then there's a thing called a request for qualification, where other bidders would then be allowed to come in if indeed they also want to bid for the land and they've got a much more competitive offer on hand. So it would have been gone to that process anyway. So it's really premature for you to have been worried.
No, that's not true. That was not the initial plan. Our stand is very clear that the matter should be restarted and should be restarted properly. So that we are able to allow other participants from the initial stage. So if, for instance, other people were going to be, other bidders were going to be invited, why not at the initial stage? Why only Cartos for now? Because if you are saying there was going to be a competitive process, you start with it. You don't wait until council says no. This cannot be a correct process. We are excited. We are happy. The DA is trying to save their face now, which is something that ordinarily they would not have done. So we are fine.
All right.
Let's begin the process.
Ziyanda, is the IFP calling for the process to be started from scratch? Oh, we lost Ziyanda there again from the line. Hopefully we can get him back. He's been having a lot of challenges with that connection there today. So, Cilliers, okay, one issue there being raised by the ANC, which I want you to address. Why was the competitive bidding process not followed from the onset? Why one particular company was considered?
So, the fact of the matter is that this particular company approached the city with quite a compelling offer. And that is, we will spend a considerable amount of private money to do what the city cannot do. And that is to install alternative electricity generation capacity that is clean, in other words, not coal burning, so that we can diversify eventually at the end of a long process the electricity supply of the city and of other cities potentially. And what the proposal was, the potential it showed was that it could generate upwards of 800 megawatts, which is about 40% of what the city currently uses. Now, this is a pretty compelling offer without preempting any outcome, without preempting what National Treasury or the public or potential other competitors wanted to offer. This is a compelling offer. And so the city does not put out a tender once it gets an offer. At least that's not necessarily the only way it could do it. It should decide, how do we make the most of this offer? And that's what the mayor debated with the officials, and what was eventually decided was what was recommended to the municipal council. The key question, I suppose, is how many other consortiums or private companies would be willing to invest this amount of capital to achieve that very same objective? Perhaps the answer is many of them. But the point is, at the end of the process that the mayor recommended, if there were other potential investors who wanted to put down this money or even more money or had better capacity, there would have been the opportunity to do so. But now we've plunged the entire process, well, not we, the ANC, ActionSA, and the EFF have plunged the entire process into chaos. And so I suppose many of those private investors would look and say, do we even want to risk our reputation and our name by making an offer of this nature? We certainly hope as the DA that they would. But whatever the solution at the end of the day, what is crucial is two things. Number one, metros such as Tshwane have to diversify their supply of electricity away from Eskom in order to reduce the effect of load shedding on communities. And they've got to use the assets at their disposal to do so. So, for instance, in Tshwane, there are these 2 coal-fired power plants, which is the subject of this proposal, where the city doesn't have the capacity to build gas turbines or whatever else clean, green generation capacity is required. And secondly, private investment will be required. So however you structure these transactions, whether it's a public-private partnership, whether you go out on tender, private investment will have to be somehow obtained. And I think what is important is that as the energy market is being deregulated at the moment, so for example, within a few months, you would no longer require a NERSA license in order to be in this market. As these reforms come online, innovative and groundbreaking solutions will have to be explored. And we can't call it corruption every time something that is innovative, that is new, that hasn't been presented before, is presented for the first time. Yeah. So I certainly hope, and the DA hopes from our side, that whatever solution is brought to Tshwane, that it will be done in a way that attracts private investment, that welcomes private investment, instead of creating suspicions around it. And just let me just say this again. Matjila again accused blatantly.
Oh, Cilliers, your line there not cooperating. Before we could hear what you wanted to say there. Hopefully we can get you back on a better connection. But Ziyanda, I believe now you are on the line because of your connection there. What are the issues that ActionSA is raising, except for, of course, the issues that are pertaining to the illegality of this particular proposal that they brought to council, is the fact that this could have been avoidable? Do you think it could have been avoidable?
Yes, thanks, Thabo. As I feel, we believe that this could be avoidable, because already now the issue is that the mayor has meddled with the processes. So now, if the mayor has meddled with the processes, we are not happy that maybe this is the deal that is honest, and then this is the deal that is going to help our people. Maybe there are interests of the mayor in the deal, but now what we are looking for as the RFP is that the proper investigation conducted, and then the mayor's name is cleared, and then we are happy to support the deal.
So are you calling for this process at least to go back to the drawing board and start it all over again?
Yes, we will be very happy for that, because already there is the hand of the mayor there. In that voice note, in that voice record, it's very clear that he has tampered with the process, because there is a lease of land there. So if the DA mayor is saying there is no tender involved and there is no procurement process involved, already there is a land that is going to be leased to someone for 30 years. So now already there is a hand of the mayor in the whole process. If the process can start afresh and then investigation conducted, and then we're very happy. And we remain very committed to the coalition until such time the mayor is cleared in this whole process.
All right, let's take this then to the ANC. The ANC, will you be continuing with your motion of no confidence now that there have been a number of developments around this particular matter, including the fact that you're hearing that there is no tender? Will you still be putting forward a motion of no confidence?
Yeah, no, we are very clear and firm on that stand that the mayor must go, because this would not have been the only thing that is unlawfully and irregularly doing. I think, as I've indicated before, Thabo, that come to the city of Tshwane and see the level of decay. No services at all. I mean, you know that the city would have been, the city is at the junk status as we speak. The banks cannot assist. I mean, the city is at a point where they are unable to, they are using grants to pay their staff and so forth. So the city is in disarray. So what we are saying is that this mayor is not capable. There's no capacity to run the city. He's running our city down. So because of all those reasons that are there, we think the guy must go. And we are happy with the stance of Action South Africa to say they cannot tie themselves with something that has features of corruption and so forth. So we are marching forward. We want him gone as soon as possible. We are on the side of our people. We don't have any relations with these guys. We want them to go. They can get us another person who can lead, because we are very democratic in character. We respect the democracy that the ANC has not received the necessary majority to govern. But we need to be governed by somebody who's very ethical, somebody who's capable, so that our people can get services that they've been getting under the administration of the ANC.
Cilliers, as we speak, the investment proposal remains in limbo, clearly with no support from the council. What's the next step? I believe the national caucus of the coalition is now going to be seized with this matter?
Yes, the coalition partners will have to meet and examine the damage that was done in this past week. We certainly hope, as I mentioned, that whatever mechanism is chosen to attract private investment to diversify the supply of electricity to the city, that such a mechanism is not bogged down by political opportunism and the type of grandstanding that we've seen here. And let me just note that when challenged to prove or substantiate allegations of corruption, Mr. Matjila from the ANC has now defaulted to other reasons why Randall Williams should be removed. So, no corruption, let's go to the next reason, which just shows you the absolute lip-smacking opportunism on display by the ANC. We are in Zwane, in fact, repairing a whole lot of damage caused by the ANC, including the period of administration where the Gauteng province unlawfully placed the city under administration. And that's where the credit downgrade that Mr. Matjila refers to occurred. So we are committed to that process. We're committed to the coalition in Zwane, and we will use existing coalition mechanisms, because this is the only way that Zwane can be governed successfully, and it's probably the only way that Gauteng and South Africa will be governed successfully after 2024.
Yeah. I tell you, Michael Beaumont, ActionSA's national chairperson, is saying the same thing. He's saying the party will continue to be committed to a coalition, but they are saying Randall Williams is not fit to lead that coalition. Is the DA going to be rallying behind Randall Williams and insisting that he continues to lead?
So Michael Beaumont and ActionSA must put up or shut up. They must come with proof of corruption, which they continually allege, or they must stick to their commitment to the coalition. As I mentioned before, the DA did not jump on the bandwagon the moment the ANC accused ActionSA's Able Tower of water tanker corruption. And so we expect ActionSA, as a responsible coalition partner committed to the future of the coalition, to at least give the DA and Randall Williams the benefit of that doubt. That is if they are, in fact, committed to the success of the coalition in Zwane.
Yeah, so I take that in simple terms to say Randall Williams, as far as the Democrats is concerned, is going nowhere.
Well, he's going nowhere, and he has said that he will subject himself to any investigation in response to accusations of impropriety. And that should give everybody assurance, especially the residents of Zwane, that they have an accountable mayor who is playing open cards with the residents.
Gentlemen, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much for coming on. That is Cilliers Brink of the Democratic Alliance, Ziyanda Zwane, IFP Tshwane Convener, as well as George Matjila, ANC's Tshwane Chairperson. Let's look at what you're saying tonight on WhatsApp, 072-110-5584, reacting to the conversation. Anonymous saying the DA knows exactly what they are doing. They want to take the power stations to themselves. The mayor does not care about the community of Tshwane and its employees. Randall must go now. Another one saying the ANC knows nothing about investment. They want to steal the 26 billion rands for themselves. Thank you so much for your engagement tonight.